The evening sky in Chunan looked like an unfinished painting, faded orange bleeding into gray, while a light mist settled slowly down the narrow alleys and trembling old houses, chilled by a winter wind that came too soon. In one of those houses, under a warm yellow light, time seemed to slow. In that modest living room, there were no spotlights, no cameras, no cheers from fans, just the sound of a boiling kettle, the calming scent of ginseng tea, and the quiet footsteps that once ran across the wooden floor, now returned as a grown man named Jungkook. He sat cross-legged on the floor, his body firmer than before, his gaze calmer, like the sea that has learned the weight of its own silence. But his smile, that smile remained unchanged. A smile that only surfaced when he was in a place where his heart could breathe freely. His mother was preparing a bowl of warm noodles in the kitchen. His father sat nearby, quietly handing him a bottle of tea. The same tea they shared when the snow came early and the world outside was too cold to interpret. They didn't speak right away. They didn't have to. In this family, love often lived in silence, flowing gently through stillness. His father wasn't a man of many words, but every gesture of his was a language of love that had never faltered. Then came that sentence. One line, simple, ordinary, and yet, not ordinary at all for Jungkook. When you marry one day, choose a wife like your mother. Time stood still. The sound of a spoon softly clinking against the wooden table. The steam from Jungkook's noodles slowly vanished into the air, carrying with it a silence filled with quiet shock. His mother pretended to be busy, but her hands trembled slightly. She knew, and they all knew, this wasn't just advice. It was a legacy about how a man should love, in silence, in presence, without conditions. Jungkook looked at his mother. The woman who never demanded anything from him, but always stood firm when the world tried to shake him. The woman who waited outside his training rooms when he was 13, just so he wouldn't walk home alone. Who never posted his pictures online, but kept newspaper clippings of him in a kitchen drawer. Who always said, "Take care," on his birthday. Not out of habit, but because she knew the deepest love needs no elaborate speech. And now, his father was telling him to find a love like that. You said that because. His voice was barely audible, like a whisper even he was unsure of. His father didn't answer immediately. He looked at his wife. Then said quietly, "Because she loves without making you question. Because she never asks for anything. But she is the reason I want to be a better man, every day. Because she is always home, even when the world feels like a storm." Jungkook lowered his gaze. He gripped his chopsticks, then slowly set them down. Silence. No hugs. No tears. But the three of them knew, a great wall within him had just cracked, and through that crack, a little light found its way in. Then, he said, "I'll wait until I find someone who makes me feel like I'm home." That sentence ended the conversation. But not its meaning. Because in his mother's now glassy eyes, Jungkook was no longer the boy she once sent off on early buses to vocal class. He had become someone who understood that true love is where you can take off every role, and still be loved. Days after that quiet visit, an old interview of Jungkook resurfaced on social media. A clip of him on Weverse, viewed by millions. He said he wanted to marry in his 30s. He wanted someone not just to love, but to protect. And if he could choose, he wanted a woman who calmed his mind, not added weight to it. Someone who could laugh with him, in silence. Army, his loyal fans, discussed his words on Twitter, Instagram, even made video edits titled, "A Wife Like His Mom." Some speculated who he might be close to. Some thought it was a hint. But most simply fell quiet, moved, because they knew, it wasn't about who. It was about how he would love. Jimin, When asked in a variety show what Jungkook would be like as a husband, smiled and replied, "He's loyal. If he loves, he'll give everything." Meanwhile, said, "He has a mature side that rarely shows, but when he speaks, you'll remember it for life." And that's what happened in that little living room. When one simple sentence came from his lips and silenced the world. "I'll wait until I find someone who makes me feel like I'm home." The night rolled in slowly. Rain fell like a lullaby only the heart could hear. Outside, the world remained loud. But inside, the living room light stayed on. Not for brightness, but for the warmth that refused to fade. And for the first time, maybe, Jungkook didn't feel like he had to run alone anymore. He now knew. Home isn't a place. It's a person. Someone who makes you feel you've arrived. On that quiet afternoon, one sentence became a lighthouse. Choose a wife like your mother. To some, that sounds cliché. But to Jungkook, it was a compass. Not because his mother was perfect, but because she loved without noise. Because she loved like home. Always open, even if she never calls. Always waiting, even if she never asks. And Jungkook, a star raised in a world that demanded shine, had learned that love isn't about the stage, nor the spotlight. But about someone who looks at you when you're silent, and still understands. Maybe he hasn't found that person yet. Maybe he's in the process. But one thing's certain, he knows what it looks like. Because he sees it every day, in the way his father looks at his mother. In the way his mother silently watches his father's aging back that never bends beneath the weight of love. That is love, a small flame that stays lit even when all the lights go out. And to a world obsessed with rushing, Jungkook seems to say, "I'm not in a hurry. I'll wait until I feel like I'm home."